And so it's time to do business again here on Business Incorporated. It's 55 minutes that we have, and here's what we have prepared for you. We're looking at the role of agency banking in Nigeria as Nigeria strives to get financial inclusion. Egypt has cut interest rates again. This is the second time in 2 months. And South Africa is set to build the pilot green hydrogen facility. It's going to be located in Johannesburg. You're welcome to the program, and we're starting from the global space as usual. Oil prices slipped on Friday, weighed down by a stronger US dollar and the possibility that OPEC Plus will further increase its crude oil output. And so we see for this afternoon a drop of 0.76% for Brent, bringing it down to $63.95 a barrel. WTI of the United States is also down 0.8%. $60.71 a barrel. Brent was down 2% this week, and the WTI was lower 2.7%. The US dollar strengthened against the basket of currencies on Thursday, boosted by the passage of President Donald Trump's bill for tax and spending cuts by the House of Representatives. Well, oil typically trades inversely with the dollar because a stronger greenback makes the commodity more expensive for non-US buyers. And a report that OPEC Plus is considering another large production increase at a meeting on June 1 is also pushing prices lower. Increasing output by 411,000 barrels a day for July was among the options discussed, but no final agreement has been reached yet. And also there was a report before now that OPEC Plus would accelerate oil hikes. A large crude oil build in the US earlier in the week also weighed on price this week. Still in the global space, gold prices went up today 1%, and we're on track for their best week in 6 weeks, boosted by a weaker dollar and as worries over the United States worsening fiscal health sent investors towards a safe haven. So we see spot gold received the biggest boost, the 1% up at $3,327.89. US gold also went up by 1%, $3,328. Spot silver was also up 0.2%, $33.13. Platinum unchanged at $1,081.43, and palladium is the only one on the inverse, 0.5% in the red at $1,009.89. That's for the metals. Remember, last week Moody's cut the United States top sovereign credits rating by 1 notch, and of course that sent growing concerns of about 36 trillion debt pile. And with this latest passage of the bill, that could even grow further. We come to Nigeria, where foreign trade conducted through letters of credit rose by 4.4% year on year to $269.83 million in the first 4 months of 2025, and that's up from $258.46 million in the corresponding period of 2024. This, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria's international payments data. This growth signals renewed confidence in Nigeria's external sector following a period during which foreign partners were reluctant to accept LCs because of the country's previously weak foreign reserve position. Despite the annual growth, the data reveals month-on-month fluctuations in LC transaction volumes. In February, for instance, LC transactions surged by 48% to $95.8 million from $64.55 million in January. However, in March, the figure dropped sharply by 54.4% to $43.53 million before rebounding by 47.7% to $64.3 million in April. We're still in Nigeria, where the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has been appointed as the chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Banjul Accord Group States. The BAC Council of Ministers comprises ministers of transport and aviation from 7 West African member states, namely Nigeria, Cabo Verde, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This was made public through a statement by Keyamo's Special Advisor on Media and Communications, Tunde Mashood. Mashood states that Kemo was appointed during the fourth meeting of the BAG Council of Ministers that was held in Nigeria, in Abuja. Meanwhile, players in Nigeria's aviation sector have also applauded the work of the minister so far, but they say it still has a lot to do. One major area being uniting the continent in trade and easing the costs involved. The Chief Executive Officer of Viva Jets, Erica Chuma, shared this during an interview with Channels Television.
We operated a flight into Freetown, which cost us $1 for a Challenger 604, just for a landing and quick turnaround. Compare that to an airport as advanced as Paris or London, which is almost half the price. So it's difficult to explain which extra services, warrant but at the end of the day, that cost is passed on to the passenger, right? So there has been talks, of course, of trying to provide a streamlined scheme of fares of fees across the West African region, but the implementation has been well short of the idea.
Agency banking is supposed to deepen financial inclusion in the country, but there are questions as to, is it the need that they are meeting or the costs? Which one outweighs the other? We'll try to see if we can get a balance between these two perspectives this afternoon with Director, Research and Business Intelligence with Business Front Limited, Mr. Yinka Awosoya. Mr. Awosoya is in the studio with us. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Hi, good afternoon.
So which one outweighs need or costs? Because, agent banking is supposed to deepen financial inclusion. Yes. And truth is, you go to areas where you don't have traditional banks and all of that, you can always depend on the third-party banks, and but it comes at a cost. And so which one is heavier?
So it's about accessibility. So if you take agency banking now, in Nigeria, we have over 1.9 million agents across the country. And then for traditional banks, only about 4,500 branches. So you look at that gap, and then they are not so scattered across the country, unlike the agents. So that's that. So then for cost, so the report that we released last month says there are people that have banks close to them. About 80% of people that have banks close to them still prefer to use the agency banking, guys, because for them it's so rather than saying you're doing a kilometer or 500 meters to get to the nearest commercial bank, there is someone under an umbrella just a few meters away from you. So that accessibility.
So agent banks or bankers have made customers lazy.
No, so it's about so it's closer to me to go to the guy does or next door.
But costs more. Sometimes it does feel like we are buying naira in Nigeria, and that's really annoying.
Yeah, it costs more. So if you are in Lagos, yeah, you can say it costs more. But if you are outside Lagos, in places whereby the town, the nearest town, or like 3-4 towns away, there are no traditional banks, so that means you have to travel. So you're looking at that cost. But if you're in the city like Lagos, definitely. But if you're outside Lagos, outside Abuja, or any other state capital, you are really going to have to travel.
So if this arm in the financial sector is supposed to help accelerate financial inclusion, why does it have to, I know you said if you're outside because you don't have an option, not that it doesn't cost you, but because you don't have an option, then you now wait and say it doesn't. But why can't it be easier or cheaper?
So they are in the business to make money. So
I thought the major aim was actually to drive financial inclusion. That's what I thought.
So that's financial. At the end of the day,
but they're just there to make money.
Exactly, the underlying fact. So which is why it doesn't make sense for traditional banks to say, let's have branches all across the country, across all the 774 local government. But then it doesn't make financial sense for them to say, let's just be establishing branches. It's capital intensive. But these guys, for them, it's not capital intensive. But then even at that, they still need to make money at the end of the day, pay the guys that are there, and cover every other cost.
What about the risks? Some people are afraid of using POS and all of that.
Yes, so the
The
risk.
exposure, the risks that comes with.
So the risk, yes, there's a risk, but then even traditional banks, they see the risk of you go to a bank. So there are cases where you see pictures of people that say they've scammed those that came to withdraw. So it's all across. But then, so for POS now, so you can transact POS without giving them your card. You can't do transfer to them without having to give them your cash. And if it's a cash transaction, if you are the one making the deposit, so it's completely out of, there is no risk involved. So just give them the cash and then they do the transaction for you. And if you're making a withdrawal, you can do transfer. So it's still, yes, there is risk, but then you can, there's a limit to the risk.
What about the allegation that they also work with some, they see the criminals and they work with them, they help them to get out the money, the kidnappers and all of that?
Yes, so that's right. But then even the banking also has that. So, and this is not to say that yes, because the banking, there is also people in the banking that are also perpetrating fraudulent activities. But then for these guys, so that might then be a case of putting a framework, a structure in place to guide against activities like this, to make sure that yes, if you are running an agency banking and POS agent, there are transactions that you should not partake in. If you go beyond a particular threshold, you should not do it. So take the payment service bank, for instance, in Nigeria. So there are limitations to the kind of services that a payment service bank in Nigeria can offer. So it might be having similar things. Okay, yes, if you are going to be doing agency banking, so there are certain services you can order. There should be a limit to the transaction. There should be a transaction threshold and all that. So that will curb stuff like that, and then having detailed information of the people you are transacting with. So that might go a long way in making sure that yes, even if the transaction has been conducted, so you can still go back to your books and say, okay, yes.
So I guess that's why, the other time the CAC was talking about getting POS agents registered, because every POS agent under an umbrella is supposed to be connected to a bigger company to ensure that you can trace their transaction, super agent. But that's not really what's going on. That's the fact.
Okay, so this is cases whereby if something happened to your bank account and you go and report to the bank will ask you to go to a police station to get an authorization for them to look into what happened to your account. So that's bottleneck. It's still the same thing to them, because if you say someone transacted, did the transaction on your account and you can't go to the person directly because you don't know the person, let me go to the bank or go to the super agent that these guys are using. At the end of the day, you are directed to go to a police station to getting that, you are already looking at the cost implication, the time you are going to waste, and at the end of the day, are you really going to get?
But I'm saying that, a lot of them are not connected to super agents.
Yeah, so the last one, I believe there is a time frame for every POS agents to be registered. No, they're actually connected. You can't do without. You are actually going through a super agent. The likes of these neobanks are doing. Yes, they are super agents. You get that, they have the license. So every POS agent have a super agent that is managing them.
So every man or woman on the street we see with,
Yes, they have a super agent that are going through a super agent.
Either by real or by fake.
They are super agents. Yeah, having a super agent get it for you.
All right. But what would you say we can do to, make better use of this third-party agents?
Okay, so because they are here to stay, because of the fact that they make financial services accessible to the people, what the banks cannot do, they have the opportunity to do that, and banks are also using them. So it's just to make sure that yes, there are policies, frameworks in place that guide both the users as well as the operators, to make sure that yes, there is everybody is protected.
But it still doesn't feel good to buy naira, in
I know,
Nigeria.
it doesn't feel
It
good.
still doesn't feel good at all.
Yes, but if you go to a bank, if you go to an ATM bank now to withdraw 20,000 naira, you are paying more than what you're supposed to pay as at a couple of months ago. So that's increased. So even from your bank, you are still paying.
Depends. All right, thank you so much. Inka Osoya, Director, Research and Business Intelligence at Business Front Limited. Thank you for your time and views.
Thank you.
Now, earlier today, we talked about affordable housing. Was it affordable? The Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria believes that government's policies towards appropriately priced housing to reach the over 20 million unit deficit is impressive. However, it's not effective as it should have been because of the lack of coordination. The president of the association, Ayolo Okere, who was a guest on Business Morning earlier today, says this is the missing link.
Imagine having a house of 15 or 20 or 30 million naira, an equity contribution of 10%. You can take your time to contribute it. That is 1, 2, or 3 million naira. Then the remaining mortgage at single digits up to 20 years. These opportunities happen in Nigeria. So when I say coordination and cooperation, it means every partner in that mortgage side, which is a demand finance side, to say we need to put that information out there more, enlighten people out there more. I'm assuming, this can be a task force by the president. He thought, the president said reform is very critical to delivering on his 1 trillion naira economy in the next few years, and he set up a presidential tax. So you can see how they were able to get this thing done. I think in the finance and the affordable housing side, there needs to be a sort of a coordination like that, so that the Ministry of Housing is doing its thing, all the other agencies and the initiative of government, everybody is coordinated. At the Mortgage Banking Association, we're working with all these initiatives because we know them, and we only do business when they function well. So it's to our own good that they do function well.
All right, now let's switch base now and discuss product designing. And I know it's like a common topic now, especially for startups, small businesses, and now it's how to scale from local insight to global relevance, because of course we know that the world is a global village. If you want to thrive, then you have to go beyond the borders of your geographical location. Well, that's what Dami is here to talk to us about. Dami Ojetunji is a products designer right here in the studio. Hi, Dami, welcome to the program.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Same here. So, Dami, everybody's talking about product designing now, and I'm wondering, do we have new products, or what's really going on?
Like I said earlier, I feel like these are conversations we need to have, especially when it comes to inclusion and diversity in tech. One of the sad things about tech and most male-dominated industry is people don't really see people that look like them talk about the issues. So I'm more than happy to, talk about product design any day, anytime.
So when you say product design,
yes.
Obviously tech, AI,
Yes.
taking over the world. Is it software? Is it hardware? What is it really?
It is software. It's usually called UI UX design, but in my case, I call it product design because I think beyond the designing, right? I'm thinking about the users. I'm thinking about their local context, right? What does this user want to see? What would a random market woman interpret this icon as, right? So that's why I feel like, okay, it's product design. I'm designing a software, making somebody's life easy, solving their basic issue. It could be like a financial issue, trying to make basic
like what?
transactions.
Give us, like if you paint a picture.
Yeah.
Talk about financial issue.
I think one of the best examples I can give right now is MoneyPoint. MoneyPoint has tapped into the local market, right?
Especially I would prefer if you don't mention a brand.
Oh, apologies for that. So that company has tapped into the local market, and that's because they're solving a very unique problem, right? And that's kind of what product design embodies.
Okay, so this is a career path.
Of course.
For people like you. And it's a future career path because the way of tomorrow, the future is AI and technology. Do we have this in our schools to prepare people to come up to this, or is it something you get out of school and then you have to get additional knowledge to be able to function here?
Unfortunately, it's not. when you're in university or secondary school, for example, you're being told there are 3 parts you have to go through. You're either in the arts or the science or the commercial. And if you're in commercial, you go to finance. If you're in the arts, you be a lawyer. If you're in science, you have to be a doctor. Especially me, for example, I have a very unconventional background. I'm a trained architect, and I went to product design because I felt like I wanted to impact in areas where people are not really noticed and figured out about, basically. And I feel like the schools and communities could do a lot better to, talk to the young ones, try and figure out what they like.
When you say young ones, what level?
I want to say children,
school?
secondary school, try and explore their interests.
Because they do coding in
Yes.
primary schools
Yes.
now.
That's fairly new, no?
Yeah, it
Yes,
is. But I
yes.
mean, it could prepare the mind of the young ones
Yeah.
to embrace what's ahead in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah.
But then you have to follow through, because you don't just do coding in primary school and
Yes,
then maybe a bit of it in secondary school. And then when you get to the university, as you said, it's science, art,
Arts or commercial.
or commercial. So
Yeah.
a lot seems to be needed when it comes to preparing individuals to have a path
Of course.
in what's relevant in the future.
Of course, I definitely agree with that. I think I'm really excited about the new generation of people being shown the possibilities of what their interests or their hobbies could actually give them or afford them, right? So a child that is very interested in robots, you're thinking of, oh, do I want to do machine learning? Do I want to do AI? Do I want to create devices for physically challenged people to navigate the world like you and I would, without any injustice or any discrimination? I'm so excited for them, and I can't wait to see what the next decade brings.
I know, right?
Yes.
But in all of this, we have to be relevant.
Of course.
Or they have to be relevant,
course.
solving the problem in your, first of all, environment before you look at the world.
Of course.
And does it look like, talking about the trends now, does it look like we have this setup to make the children look inwards, to solve the problems that we have, and not looking,
Fetch
you know
around.
what I mean?
Yes, of course. Again, it still goes back to what I said at the beginning about having conversations like this, having children see people that look like them, taking the very unconventional path. If you think about it, in the last 10 years, tech wasn't really what it is now. They'll be like, oh, do you want to sit down at home and press laptop? What are you doing?
You want to be Yahoo?
We hope not.
No, that's what the picture that was painted. Then once you're always on the laptop and everything.
Exactly. So that's why we need to have these conversations, right? So I'm talking about how I, came from very unconventional background, and I figured out, okay, this is what I want to do.
So at what point did you switch?
At what point? I think I wanted to merge both the creativity and the technicality. And the path I found was just product design. If you know architecture very well, it's very hands-on, very technical. You're on site, you're doing snag reports, there isn't enough avenue for creativity, except when you're like set up in your career. It takes a while to get to that point where you want to do whatever you want to do. And I couldn't find that path, when thinking about it in the long run. And product design. We're doing this for 5 years now.
So when you look at the trend, there are a lot of individuals like you who've come through school and see, oh, this is what I really love to do. This is what has demand, for the future and all of that. When you see the trend, what sectors, what areas of relevance do you think they should be looking, assuming that some of them are watching now?
Honestly, I think the big one now is AI. Sadly, I saw a joke the other day about how we've gone to school for 16 plus years and now AI is taking our jobs. The big one is AI, but I really would like to drive the communication around spatial technology. So if you're familiar with products that are designed for virtual reality and augmented reality, there is a vast amount of things that could be done with that. So from health tech, virtual reality can help them with performing surgeries or doing like communication consultations, or using AI and virtual reality spatial technologies for navigation and transportation, right? So one of the very early design exploration I did was imagining people in a very crowded concert area and trying to find their friends. You could use virtual reality to point around the crowd and see, oh, this is where my friend is, you know. So I would say, of course, AI is there. Of course, there's a fear of it taking our jobs. But I would say let's explore around, you know, augmented reality, spatial design, spatial technologies, and I think we have a fantastic place to go.
Where do we fix this into issues? I'm looking at the economic challenges we
Of
have,
course, yes.
like food security,
Yes.
like insecurity, like since we don't have a lot of infrastructure for trading, is there a way we can build things around this? I know some time ago I spoke to someone who does virtual reality for real estate. So you don't have to physically go to a
Yes,
place,
you can
you can project
Yes.
it and the customer can look at it.
Yes.
Do we have a way of fixing that into the agriculture sector, the issue of insecurity? These are major issues that we're facing.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, that's why we need to start looking into, you know, our local nuances and things that we are really dealing with, right? So, for example, I mentioned defining your friends in a concert. So that could easily apply to security, or that could easily apply to, you know, just basic stuff. Okay, is my crop going to grow this year? I project it on the soil and trying to see like the soil composition and stuff like that. I think it's just the world is big, the sky is big for us to like explore the different applications as long as we have a beginning and a starting point.
All right, but I hope the challenge of internet penetration, power, electricity will not hold us back.
I think that's where product design comes in, and that's why it stands out from UI UX design. They're very interesting considerations as a product designer. For example, I am thinking about, because I'm designing for the African markets, the basic African user or the random local user doesn't have strong enough internet. You know, those are the cases where I start considering, do I need this much images on the app? Let me just write the text. I think that's what makes us stand out a little bit more, just considering very local base roots nuances that can actually improve it. I think that's what I do.
Okay, all right. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing,
Thank you
product
for having
designer Dami Ojetunji, for your time.
Thank
and
you.
wish you the best.
Thank you.
Mark is still Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. Let's head to the markets now. As promised, hope the color has changed. Will has the details. Will, I hope you have green color this
Yeah,
afternoon.
you can see I'm wearing something like steel green. So, you know, I just come with that bearing that good news.
Let's see.
Bearing that good news.
The numbers will give us the assurance.
The numbers give you the assurance, like, oh my goodness. Oh, you know, luckily we just rebounded. You know, we had 2 negative sessions,
Yes.
Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
and you know, it's more like, is it Monday, Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's more like, okay, the market just doesn't want to just let down, especially with the banking sector. It's just beaten down for days now, and just hopefully we're seeing that
And
uptick.
this is really slim, so I hope it doesn't change by the
Well,
close of trade.
just before I came in, we just checked, and you know, we're about 0.045%
Oh,
up.
okay. So we're building on
we're
this.
building. Hopefully, we build further and then end further in the
And
green.
and then with the bull
you know,
today.
the ball. Have a
We'll keep
nice
praying.
ride. You know. Okay, so let's see how major equities we track. We just checked out the NGX. It's in the green. We see it at intraday. NGX up 0.01%. That's at the time I checked, but right now it's building up. We see that 0.04%. So that's rebounding from 2 consecutive negative performance, 2 sessions in the red. We hope that today we have a sustained performance, and this was driven by gains in the banking stocks for today. Increased demand, hopefully, for Fidelity Bank after declining 17% in the last 5 trading sessions, and bids are currently 3 times the amount of offers in the market. Now let's look at GSA in South Africa, 0.7%, 93,000 points there. Or hopefully we'll see the EGX in Egypt. Let's see how they perform. Well, they are closed today They closed today. If you see the EGX up on the screen there, they closed Thursday 0.44% at 31,975 points. And we see Kenya exchange down Thursday 0.43%. That's the second consecutive negative performance. We hope there's a rebound at the close of business today. But let's get behind the scenes and see what's driving the price action at the NGX and why. We're joined by Mr. Azubike Okpala-Oka. He's the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, TRW Stockbrokers, but I think we'll go be getting him much later. Let's see how other markets are performing in the Middle East very quickly. We see Middle East markets, most major stocks there in the Gulf are closed today. They close on Thursdays, except in the UAE, where we see Dubai in the green, up 0.14%, and Abu Dhabi down, trading at intraday 0.05%. Still within the region, Saudi and Qatari indexes are both closed, but they were closed in mixed, trading sessions. See the title in Saudi Arabia down 1.02%. That's a whole lot to close the week with. Now, Qatari index is closed, but in the green, 0.02%. Let's scoot over now to the U.S. and see how stock futures performed in early trade on Friday as investors are weighing the impact of higher U.S. Treasury yields. The Dow futures fell 0.07%. So red for the U.S. markets. NASDAQ and S&P 500 futures were also in flat, but in negative territory. We're seeing that on the screen there, 0.02% and 0.21%. Now, the House has passed President Trump's tax bill. It's now headed to the Senate, but concerns over its costs, pushing a 30-year yield, Treasury yield to 5.161%, the highest since October 2023, and then the 10-year above 4.6%. Both yields, however, is slightly today, but we're going to get highlights of yesterday, that's Thursday's market performance, from our correspondent, Maria Bird.
How we're able to transit from that archaic system to the modern one.
The U.S. stock market fell on Tuesday as the Dow Jones was down at 0.27%. The S&P 500 was also down at 0.39%, snapping a 6-day winning streak. And the heavy tech NASDAQ also closed down at 0.38%. Many investors are a bit concerned that there has not been any concrete trade deals, as they're not sure if this whole 90-day hold the president has put on tariffs could be something that could be helpful in the long term, as they're waiting to see if there will be any more of an escalation in the relationship and the potential trade deals between U.S. and China, as there has been cooling over the last few days. It is clear investors are watching to see if anything will come out of this in the next few days and weeks ahead, as they are hopeful that the U.S. stock market could show a rebound if there are some concrete trade deals.
Okay, thank you, Maria. We're just going to check in on Asia markets now, which showed a mixed performance on Friday as investors evaluated a range of economic reports from the region. We see Japan's Nikkei 225 rising to close at 0.47% after closing negative yesterday. We saw South Korea's Kospi 0.06%, however, in the red, not so rebounding from yesterday's negative performance. Hang Seng in China is up 0.24%. And now Japan's core inflation, if you look at it, accelerated to 3.5% in April. And this was partly driven by soaring rice prices as the Bank of Japan weighs pausing rate hikes amid the impact of U.S. tariffs. Investors also are reviewing South Korea's April producer price index. Maybe that's why we're seeing that negative performance there. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng index and China's Shanghai indexes were in opposite directions. We see the Hang Seng, I see it's closing up, and China, we looked at Hang Seng earlier, China is closing down nearly 1% there. We see the Hang Seng 0.24%, and then the Hang Seng and the China, mainland China, is in the red. US and China, however, have agreed to maintain communication following a call between Chinese Vice Foreign Minister and the Deputy Secretary in the U.S. Now, according to Chinese Foreign Ministry, that report, we wait to see how that pans out for them. Now, Singapore's Core inflation rose 0.7% year-on-year in April, and that exceeded forecast of 0.5%. The Nifty 50 is up nearly 1%. You see that on the screen there. Well, that's good for the markets for Asia. But we can head over right now and see how quickly what happened at the NGX. Just briefly, what drove market prices. We have Mr. Azubike Okpaloka is the Managing Director and CEO of TRW Stockbrokers. Good afternoon, Mr. Okpaloka. It's good to have you on the show.
Good afternoon, Will. How are we doing?
We're great. Now, we see the first positive at intraday after 2 negative sessions. So what's driving this? We see banking stocks up. What's pushing investors to that corner?
Yeah, basically, you realize that we've just finished one of our largest federal government sukuk. That's about 19 point something percent. So everybody, and this is just coming out of dividend season. So everybody just rushed out in there, and they're realizing that we're back home to where it really happens. So the stocks are priced right now. So everybody's back in here now.
Okay, fine. So Fidelity Bank is on the rise again. What's driving the turnaround in sentiment, saying that for 5 consecutive sessions, it was beaten down? Investors did not want to pick up the stock, but right now, what's in it? Is it bargain hunting?
No. Whether anybody realizes it or not, Fidelity is like the new kid on the block. So they've done so well, and the negative reports from the Supreme Court decision, and you know what information does in our system. So everybody goes, Fidelity Bank is going bankrupt, which isn't true. And so the initial panic was what caused all that. But right now, everybody realizes, because Fidelity Bank has come out and said, this is what happened. It was a legacy transaction. We're sorting it out. We're asking for explanation from Supreme Court. So information is key in this market. So everybody should always get their information right. Fidelity Bank has come out to explain what has happened, and everybody realizes, oh, we made a mistake. The people that panicked have panicked, and they're out. They can't get back in at that price. So that's what's going to happen.
Definitely, we'll hope Fidelity Bank keeps soaring. Well, investors will have to watch and see. The markets will definitely watch and see as well. But what's your outlook for the markets today? It's a bit slim for the index. Do you see it closing in the red or in the green?
Closing in the red is not it. It has to close in the green, because we're all back at it.
Okay. Are you still there?
Yes, I am here. I just had a call that just threw me out. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you very clearly. So you're saying we're ending in the green. That's what I'm holding you on for today.
We should end in the greens quite slightly, but we should end in the green, because you know that the most traded stocks are the banking stocks.
Okay.
So once Fidelity is trading quite good, UBA I think is trading quite good, Access Bank trading quite good, we'll be back on it.
Okay,
fine. If we have a good transaction with the Dangote, we're back up.
Fantastic. We hope to see the market in green, because I would like to report a green market. Thank you so much, Mr. Azubike Okpaloka, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, TRW Stockbrokers Limited. So, Ini, market is going to end in the green.
Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed, Phil.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. All right, now let's head to Europe and find out how the investors are doing now. But first, there's this big news just coming from there, and that is that President Donald Trump has announced that he wants a 50% tariff on EU goods from June the 1st. That's the latest from the tariff story. We'll talk about that, but first, we have Chip Chiponder to tell us about the market, and then we can't wait for what's going on about the tariff. Hi, Chip. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. How investors, which way are they going this afternoon?
Well, any European shares are, of course, down after that announcement that US President Trump is considering imposing 50% tariffs on EU goods, because he said, of course, trade talks with the European Union are stuck. Now, the pan-European Euro stocks 600 is actually down 2.1%, and that is after it was trading higher today. Stocks, of course, fell deeply after the tariff news broke, and Germany's blue chip index, the DAX, is actually down even more than the Euro Stock 600. It is down 2.75%. News of those tariffs, of potential tariffs, has soured the mood on markets. And of course, we should know that earlier today, investor sentiment was actually positive after we got news that the German economy grew more than was forecast in the first quarter of the year. Germany's GDP actually rose 0.4% from January to March, but obviously right now the focus has shifted to those potential tariffs.
Yeah, talking about the tariffs, with this 50% announcement from the 1st of June, where are the talks now? Any reaction yet?
Well, before we heard that the talks were stuck, we know that U.S. President Trump's negotiators were pushing the European Union to make unilateral tariff reductions, and that is according to the Financial Times. It reports that U.S. representatives have said that without concessions, trade negotiations cannot continue, and the bloc will be unable to avoid 20% additional tariffs on European exports. Now, earlier this week, Brussels shared a new trade proposal with Washington, and that was in response to a letter that the bloc received from the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer last week. And now media reports also say that the U.S. named its 5 key demands, which include harmonizing tariff rates, better investment conditions for U.S. firms in Europe, and a similar approach when it comes to dealing with China. Now, so far, senior EU officials have been a bit cagey about giving updates, and they are probably holding off on doing so until concrete progress is made.
And so what are the sticky points in all of these talks, especially the tariff parts?
Well, one of the biggest sticky points would be the non-tariff barriers. Now, take value-added tax, for instance. The Trump administration says that the EU's VAT on goods is like a tariff, but that is something that Brussels disagrees with because VAT is applied on all goods, whether they are made in the EU or imported. And that is, of course, the one area of agreement. Another one is the EU's tech regulation. For instance, the US president has called the EU's Digital Markets Act an overseas extortion of American companies. Now, US tech giants have also been critical of the EU's regulation of their sector, including how it regulates competition, illegal content online, and artificial intelligence. And of course, the Trump administration also sees that regulation as a trade barrier, but it is unlikely the EU will be making concessions in those areas. The EU, in fact, has been working on a 2-track strategy. It has prepared some concessions in terms of balancing its trade deficit with the United States. The EU is said to be offering to buy more American liquefied natural gas and also more computer chips. And Brussels is also offering to cooperate in more areas too. And of course, on the other hand, it also has a list of US products that it could slap with retaliatory tariffs. And we do know that the EU has declined to comment on Trump's latest tariff announcement. So, of course, the drama continues, and we'll wait to find out what's happening in the coming days. And we'll be on the story, of course. You need to be updating you.
Yes, Chip. And just when we wanted to hold our breath for 90 days, it seems President Trump is saying that's too much luxury for the world. So we'll see, as you said, follow up the story. And I trust you there to keep us updated. Chip, thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, Ini.
Now let's come to Africa and start with Egypt, where the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Egypt, at the conclusion of its meeting, decided to reduce the overnight deposit and lending rates by 1 percentage point, setting them at 24% and 25 percentage points, respectively. The Central Bank of Egypt lowered interest rate by 100 basis points, as its Monetary Policy Division said in a statement, citing a sustained recovery in economic activity and a cooling inflation. These increases brought the rate to 27.25%, 28.25%, and 27.75%, respectively. Additionally, the credits and discounts rate was also raised by 600 basis points, reaching 27.75%. South Africa's state-run power utility, Eskom, has issued an invitation to tender for the construction of a pilot renewable green hydrogen facility at its Research, Testing and Development Unit in Johannesburg. According to Eskom, establishing a pilot RHF will allow it to explore the possible integration of green hydrogen into the energy mix, while also offering an opportunity to gain insight into the legal and regulatory frameworks governing renewable hydrogen. It will also support internal skills development. ESCOM currently has 2 gigawatts of clean energy projects ready for execution by 2026 and more than 20 gigawatts in various stages of development. This, according to the utility, reflects its commitment to diversifying the energy mix, drawing in investments and delivering lasting benefits for all South Africans. And still in South Africa, the preferential exports have steadily increased since the start of preferential trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area, that's the AfCFTA agreement, on January 31, 2024. It says that Trade, Industry and Competition, the Deputy Minister, shared this information. From January 2024 to March this year, South Africa's exports under AfCFTA preferences amounted to about 820 million rands of a diverse range of products, including mining equipment, appliances, food items, apparel, plastics, and electrical machineries. Imports from AfCFTA agreements implementing countries such as Kenya, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia amounted to about 610 million rands during the period from January 2024 to March 2025. I guess that's a challenge to Nigeria, giant of Africa, to also tap into that AfCFTA platform and make the most out of it. Now let's head to Zimbabwe, where the miners are calling for the postponement of the newly imposed export tax on lithium concentrate until local refining plants are optional and operational. As Zimbabwe lithium exporters, which includes members such as Chexin Lithium Group, has formally requested a 2.5-year delay in the 5% levy, which is intended to encourage the development of domestic refining industry. Zimbabwe has rapidly become a key supplier of lithium concentrate to Chinese refineries, with companies there looking at Cobalt and Simoni Resource Group investing heavily in local mining projects. And still in Zimbabwe, the European Union has facilitated over $100 million in low-interest loans to 4 major local banks in a move that's aimed at stimulating investment in agriculture, the food industry, and renewable energy. This is according to the EU ambassador to Zimbabwe, Jobs von Kirchmann. Speaking during a panel discussion at the EU Zimbabwe Business Forum in Harare, he said that the initiative is more than just about injecting money into the economy. It's about enabling access to sustainable long-term capital. The financing channel through the European Investment Bank, EIB, will benefit 4 financial institutions in the country. Well, these banks, according to him, are expected to pass on the benefits of the low-interest long-tenor loans to local businesses and entrepreneurs. The inaugural EU Zimbabwe Business Forum is part of ongoing efforts to improve trade and investment ties between Zimbabwe and the European Union. And from there, let's talk about sugarcane in Kenya. Sugarcane farmers there have received a boost after the government raised the prices from 5,300 shillings to 5,500 per ton, and that begins from Monday next week. The price revision is part of ongoing industry reforms targeting the strengthening of Kenya's sugar sector, while at the same time ensuring farmers receive fair compensation for their produce. According to Agriculture Principal Secretary, all 15 licensed millers, including state-owned factories under lease arrangement, should strictly comply with the newly established minimum pricing. It further directed millers to ensure farmers are paid promptly. All right, let's head to the crypto space and see what's happening right there. The color is red. We hit a new high this week, 111,000. And then, of course, as expected, there's been profit taking, and now we see that sentiments are changing. There's profit taking going on right there. So for this afternoon, Bitcoin is 108,570.78 after it lost about 2.5%. Ethereum is also down more than 4%. Is at $2,543.39 there. XRP in the red, BNB TRX. But what's really making headlines in the crypto space is President Trump again. Yes, it's President Trump. US President Trump will host a private event for hundreds of top investors in this crypto meme coin, with leaders of the Democratic opposition blasting it as an orgy for corruption. The unprecedented melding of U.S. presidential power and personal business will take place at Trump's golf club outside Washington, where the 220 biggest purchasers of the Trump meme coin will have dinner with the president. Now, details of those who are attending this event is what's really making the headlines. Top 25 investors, according to the event website. And you remember President Trump, of course, launched that meme coin 3 days before his January inauguration. And there's been some zeroing into the people who attend. There's a Chinese-born crypto entrepreneur, Justin Sun. He claims the top investor position, having committed $20 million to Memecoin as part of his $93 million total investment in Trampoline Crypto. Now, Sun is the founder of Top 10 Cryptocurrency Tron, was under investigation by the US authorities for market manipulation, but regulators, after President Trump took office, agreed in February to give him a 60-day pause to seek settlement. So you see why there's a lot of talk going on about this dinner that President Trump is going to hold. Top on the list is that one. Then you also have Justin Onga of advocacy group and Citizens United described the crypto dinner as a blatant example of Trump profiting from the presidency while roiling the U.S. economy. So a lot of stories going on about the attendees of this Trump dinner, Trump meme coin dinner. That's his man. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure pictures will come out after the dinner, and we'll see. And maybe the bird inside the room will give us a little bit of gist of what they had. But other stories now. Making the headline is WorldCoin. WorldCoin is the biometric identity token backed by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. It surged, that's WorldCoin, surged by more than 31% from a daily low of $1.24 to the highest of $1.63. Also, another story making the rounds, JP Morgan, Bank of America, they lead early talks on joint stablecoin projects as adoption grows. Several large US banks are reportedly discussing a plan to launch a joint stable coin in the future. According to Wall Street Journal, firms connected to JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo are involved in the early stage talks. We seem to see more adoption there now, and then they're coming together to create one stable coin. That's also another one. But let's talk to Solomon Amunde now, to get maybe his views from some of these issues. Hi, Solomon. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Nini.
Yeah, so, I don't know, are you also invited to this Trump gala dinner that's going to happen next week? I wish I could be there. The rich guys are there.
Actually, I wasn't invited. I'm not a holder of the Trump meme coin, though. So I guess maybe that's why.
Oh, maybe you should try and get it. It's not too late, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I traded it, but I've sold off. I sold off earlier this year. Yeah.
Okay, you jumped the boat before the fall, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So
Lucky you.
This is more like compensating the bag holders. I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to compensate them.
Yeah, and we hear that Sun, for instance, after the 60-day reprieve that they gave to him for settlement, he even bought more, so I guess...
Yeah. To show support. Yeah.
This is no Nigeria. This is America we're talking about, and yet we're here. But anyways, we saw a record high, and now we see the natural course. Where do you see us going to next? Talking about the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so Bitcoin has been able to create a new all-time high in this second quarter of the year, which was very much expected. So what I'm expecting now, initially I was looking at $110K for us to at least break above that to confirm a new all-time high. So I'm expecting a bit of retracement, which surprisingly it has started today. I was expecting it into next month. So it has started today. I expect us to see like a retracement to, I'm still looking at 98K, 100K. Still looking at that zone. We should retrace to that area so that we can get some good momentum
Wouldn't that be
to
too
continue the
much,
rally
Solomon?
upwards.
Wouldn't that be too much going all the way to 98? I mean, we went to 111. We're now at 108. Isn't it too much to get back to 98 under 100?
No, it's not much actually. It's just 12% correction, which is very fair for the price of Bitcoin. And that momentum and that liquidity will be needed. We just need to tap the liquidity slightly below 100K. We do need that because most of the investors looking to come in and also the funds looking to load up Bitcoin, and some countries too looking to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet, creating a Bitcoin reserve. They'll be looking at doing DCA and they would not want to buy the top. So they'll be looking at getting in at around 100K or slightly above 100K, maybe 1-2% above 100K. If they can see below 100K, that would also be fantastic.
And then
So that's
this,
why I'm also looking at that price.
okay, and then these major banks coming together talking about having a stable coin. That's not Bitcoin, but does it bring more confidence to the ecosystem?
Yeah, once we have more stable coins, it brings more liquidity to the ecosystem. So the more stable coins we have, or the increase in the quantity of stable coins we have in the future, based on minting of new stable coins like USDT, adding more volume, the more stable coins we have, the more the circulating supply of stable coins, the more it will also influence the price of Bitcoin positively towards the upside and also the entire crypto market cap.
All right, Solomon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ini.
That's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. A whole week of doing 55 minutes of current and relevant talks, in the morning and in the afternoon. And we would do better next week, starting from Monday. So do join us again from Monday. We'll bring you Business Morning as well as Business Incorporated. I'm Ini John Mekwa, wishing you a restful weekend. Bye-bye.